Brothers and sisters, seekers of the truth, let me ask you a question. What did you eat today? No, I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about ideas, stories, the beliefs. Because for centuries, we've been fed a diet of lies. Lies about who we are, lies about where we come from, lies about who built the world we live in. And we swallowed them. We digested them. We passed them on to our children. Until the truth started tasting like fiction, and fiction was served up as fact. But today, we spit it out. Let's start at the beginning. But this is truly not the beginning, but it's the beginning that the people who are in charge want to start history at. Not in Greece, not in Rome, but let's talk about Africa, the cradle of humanity, which most black folks reject because they've been fed a diet of European history that they love. They want to be so much like their master. You understand? They act like gatekeepers of their truth. But their truth is American history turned backwards. Every person walking this earth carries African DNA. That's not a metaphor. That's not my truth. That's science. So when we talk about civilization, we must begin where humanity began. Before Europe had cities, Africa had empires. Before Plato wrote philosophy, African priests were teaching it. But you have to understand something. When you depend on your enemy for everything, you believe everything your enemy says. Before Hippocrates became the father of medicine, African healers were performing surgeries, treating disease, and passing down knowledge through generations. Let's talk about African medicine. East Africans used Artemisia to treat malaria 2,000 years before Western labs caught on. The baobab tree, called the tree of life, was used for healing long before it became a trendy superfood. And in 1721, an enslaved African named Wanamus taught Boston how to prevent smallpox, saving thousands of lives. But did he get credit? No, because the system wasn't built to honor African genius. It was built to extract it, to steal it, to rebrand it. Let's talk about spirituality. African traditions honored ancestors, revered nature, and understood the soul as being part of a cosmic whole. Europeans called it paganism. Missionaries called it witchcraft. And you know that before the colonizers came, they sent the missionaries in there to soften you up, to make you believe in something that you never heard of. And then the colonizers, they outlawed what you believe in, and then they rebranded it and sold it back to you, and then you were left with the Bible, not spirituality, and they had the land. And on top of that, they even stole you from your own country. Ancestor veneration became saint worship. Nature rituals became folklore, and oral wisdom was dismissed as primitive, while written lies were canonized as history. This is what whitewashing looks like. It is not just erasure, it's replacement. It's taking African foundations and building monuments on top of them. It's feeding the world a history where Africa is a footnote, not the headline. See, we've got so used to being in this slave-master relationship that we want to become like our oppressors. In fact, most of us become gatekeepers for white folks. And why? Because to justify slavery, colonization, and exploitation, Europe needed a myth. They needed more than a myth of superiority, a myth that said Africans were uncivilized, that Europe was the light in the darkness, that whiteness was the standard and everything else was the other. But life was born out of darkness. Babies are born out of darkness. The cosmos knew darkness before they knew light. So, what did they do? Europeans, to almost everybody on earth, Indians, Africans. So they fed us that myth in schools, in churches, in textbooks, in media, and we ate it. The myth of their superiority. The myth that Africans were uncivilized. That Europe was the light in the darkness. We believe that civilization started in Greece. That science was born in Europe. That religion came from Rome. We believe that Africa was behind when in truth Africa was ahead. But now we remember that African architecture inspired pyramids and temples. African astronomy mapped the stars before Galileo. African language shaped rhythm, poetry, and storytelling across the globe. Across this whole globe. Now we do this to ourselves and communities and believe what they tell us and eat what they feed us because of the hatred inside ourselves and the fact that we love our masters. We remember that people who rule the world today, those who built empires on capitalism, slavery, and racism, did so by stealing the blueprint from Africa. They didn't create the foundation, they copied it. They infringed on it. And then they told the world that they were the authors, just like copyright. How you gonna copyright something that you didn't create? That's what they did for us because we don't know better, but we know better now. So I ask again, what did you eat today? What did Fox News, CBS feed you? Did you consume the lie or did you taste the truth? Because the truth is rich, it's nourishing, it's revolutionary. And once you've tasted it, you'll never go back. So let's feed ourselves with truth. Let's teach our children the real story. Let's honor the ancestors who built the world and reclaim legacy that was stolen because Africa isn't just where we come from, it's who we are. It's the source. It's the soul of all of it. And it's time the world remembered it. Speak the truth to those who have been misled. Uplift those who seek clarity. Challenge the systems that have distorted history. The lie of superiority to justify slavery, colonization, and exploitation. Europeans created the idea that they were racially superior. They spread false beliefs. But knowing what we know today, why do you keep eating the same old lies?